Well, Ryan Larsen, thank you so much for joining me on the Highest Level podcast today. And, excited for you because you were just named head coach at Carnegie Mellon University. And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But leading up to that, your previous 12 years in coaching, you've been really fortunate because you've been involved in a lot of winning programs up to this point in your career. And just as you start to look back and reflect as you move forward in your first head coaching role, just kind of talk about your experiences leading up to this moment and maybe some of the commonalities in some of those winning programs you've been a part of.
Yeah, it's actually funny you state it that way. I was on a player meeting. I'm doing player meetings right now, meeting with each guy 10 to 15 minutes and getting to know them. And, I have a few questions I have prepared, and then I want them to ask questions. And a young man yesterday asked me, he was like, tell me how are you prepared for this job? And I was like, wow, insightful, bold. And I loved it because I felt like I was still being interviewed. And I think and the answer, it is kind of what you just said. You pull upon experiences. You pull upon experiences of places that you've been, the positives and the negatives. And I think that that's the important part. Everyone wants to sit there and say, oh, well, you just pull all the good things, but you learn from the bad things too. You see things from leadership, above you and say, that fits me, or, ooh, that doesn't fit me. That may have worked for him, but just doesn't work for me. And so you learn from that. And so I've been super, super fortunate in my career to work with some really, really, really outstanding head coaches. And some guys people know, they're bigger names. People know Al Bagnoli, people know Bill Lynch. But I worked for a guy, Ed Hoddle at Stevenson, who may have had one of the biggest impacts on me, and will be a big impact on me as a head coach. I worked for guys at Division III schools that people have never heard of, but are fantastic coaches. Eric Rayburn's had a ton of success, whether it was at Wabash and Savannah State, and now he's at Gannon. So you're always pulling, from all these different experiences with these guys that you work with. And to me, what I've noticed in all the successful stops is there's always been a very, very consistent theme of the team having that unity and the players. And the times I've been a part of teams that haven't been successful, which I've been fortunate that there haven't been many, it's been maybe that the team wasn't as unified. It wasn't as kind of together, and it's funny, like I can draw upon that Columbia experience. My first year at Columbia in 2019, I think the team had a lot of success and they were still resting on those laurels, and there wasn't as much of a strong foundation of hard work as probably we needed to have. And we just kind of expected to win, and we didn't. And then the pandemic hit, and the guys had taken kind of a cultural shift before the pandemic to say, hey, we're gonna take this thing over. We're gonna do it the right way. We're not gonna let statistics or personal successes drive anything. It's gonna be about us. And the pandemic hit and actually made it even stronger, which was, I think, really a testament to our kids at Columbia. And then I look at the 2021 season. So we go from 3-7 to 7-3. And it all was because of the culture and the way that the kids bought in. And I got to stop calling them kids because they're not kids, they're young men. But just what they did to kind of bring it all together and to be accountable and to work for each other was really impressive. And so, whether it's been Wabash, Rhodes, Stevenson, or Columbia, one of the things I've had in all those stops is it's just been really, really strong player-led culture, where they hold each other accountable, but they have a hell of a lot of fun playing football and being on that field together too.
Yeah, it's always all about the team. And I've seen it the same in my career too, Ryan. And you talked about Coach Hoddle at Stevenson, and you said he had a really big impact on you. Can you elaborate on that? Like, how has he impacted your career and maybe your personal life as well?
Yeah. What was really unique about the experience at Stevenson is I walked in and it was year 5 of the program. So the program had only been around for 4 years. He literally built the program day one, cell phone, laptop, and him. No stadium, no nothing. Go build a college football program. And so I think what I really learned from him, which was an amazing experience, was like, we always looked at everything from a different vantage point. How can we do it better? There was no, like, this is the way it's been done, because everything that we did was the first time. And so he was really open to looking at things different ways, being creative, being different, because we were different. We were new. There was no standard. And so I think that was one of the one things, like, how can we recruit differently? How can we recruit better? How can we change? How can we evolve? Those are the big things. But he really drove back home kind of the core values of the program. The core values there are going to be the same core values that I'm bringing to Carnegie Mellon, because I think that they are ones that translate to every aspect of life. And it's the code that you live by: commitment, ownership, discipline, and effort. And if you can apply those things to anything that you do in your life, school, football, social life, relationships, whatever it may be, if you have commitment, you take ownership, you show self-discipline, and you bring your effort, you're going to be successful. And so I just think that it's a great way to approach developing young men. And that's what we're in the business of doing, is developing young men, especially at places like Carnegie Mellon. We want our kids to have an amazing football experience, we want to win a lot of games, but we're also building young men that are going to go change the world. And so we want to make sure that we're instilling in them some values that can go beyond their time there. And so that was one of the big things that Ed really drove home. And I went through a cultural shift there as well, where we had a lot of success in a short amount of time. And very similar to the Columbia experience, the kids kind of in, what year was it? But in 2017, we were like, oh, well, we're awesome, and we're just going to win because we won last year. And we were 12 in the country and went to the playoffs and all these things. And we went 6-5 that year. And it was like the world was over going 6-5. And we blew things up and restarted. And that was year 7 of the program. We're blowing things up and restarting. And so I think that's a testament to him, that it was always like, hey, it's never good enough. It's never accepting that, hey, oh yeah, it was just a bad year. No, it was a bad year for a reason. Let's go fix the reason. Let's not just point at something and say, oh, well, that's what's wrong. Let's fix it. And so, yeah, he was a huge, he still is a huge influence. When I went through this process with Carnegie Mellon, I had a lot of phone calls with Ed Hoddle. He may have been one of the first people. He probably was the first person outside of my family to know that I was taking the job. So a lot of phone calls, a lot of advice, and a lot of appreciation by me, for sure.
Really special to have a mentor like that, and especially somebody who's been through it and can kind of help lead you as you kind of develop your path as a head coach. And you've had all these different experiences that you were just kind of touching on. And I've heard that you have a book that you keep all your concert tickets in for every concert that you've been on.
Yeah.
This kind of speaks to me because I consider myself an organizational nerd. And I'm just curious, as you were going through your coaching career, did you also implement these same organizational skills that you implement in your concert going life? Or was that something that you kind of developed along the way?
It's funny you say that, because I'm going through a mini crisis on my own right now. My external hard drive is not working, and it's freaking me out. I've got a lot of really good stuff on there from my entire career. We're going to get it fixed. And if I got to go to Geek Squad at Best Buy, we'll get it figured out. But there's a lot of stuff on there I need. One thing that I did, and I think it was a really good practice, is before I wanted to be a head coach, before I truly wanted to be one, I started working on my book. Everyone's got the book. And I started working on it earlier in my career. And yet again, it was pulling from positives and negatives, things that I liked, things that I thought were good as I was at different stops in my career, or I was visiting with other coaches, going to clinics, meeting up with other guys and like, ooh, that's good. I like that. Or, don't like that as much. And so I started working on my book. Probably around 2014, 2015, when I was still a young coordinator. And I started working on it early, and every year I would go back and look at it, and tweak it, and adjust it. And then when I started actually interviewing for head coaching jobs, that's where I really started to get better at it, because it's one thing to look at it, but then when you have to present it and you have to go through it and you get critiqued on it, you really start to go back on it. So like when you talk about like the crazy organizational stuff, like that was one thing that it was just a constant evolutionary process going through. I am a fanatic when it comes to my organization. I love Rocketbook. I'm a Rocketbook guy. They don't pay me, so I'm not trying to do a promotional ad here, but I just love the way that you can take notes. I'm kind of old school with paper. I was a lit major, so I kind of have that in me. And then it can scan up into my cloud and go onto my Google Drive and share all my notes. So I love that. And then now I'm in a new world of organization with being a head coach. I think I have 30 folders within my email box now, and many of them don't have an email in them yet, but they will sometime soon. And I feel like every day I'm like, ooh, I might need a new folder for that, or I might need a new thing for that. So, it just helps me stay on task, and it helps me keep my thoughts organized, because sometimes my thoughts are all over the place.
I really love this. I mean, I can identify with this so much, and we could probably do a spin-off podcast on like the organizational skills and the highest level of organization. We'll save that for another time, but it's really interesting because I did the same thing early in my career where I was taking notes. And I mean, we're going back to like 2004, 2005 when I was coaching fourth grade football in Boulder, Colorado. And it's really interesting. I came across a note the other day, just randomly looking at it. And this is when I was at SMU. And one of the coaches was like, guys, we need to win on the road. We need to get that road mentality going, and was talking about this. And I made a note as a 22-year-old coach of just like, we haven't won on the road here for 4 years. Like, we don't know what that means. And saying win on the road or road mentality means nothing. And of course, I think I was just kind of like a young coach, and I didn't really understand the gravity of that. But as I've grown and seen more things in my coaching career, you kind of get to know that, you have to explain everything in very simple terms. So there's incredible value in just kind of those random notes that you might take one time years ago that comes back and kind of jogs your memory and maybe reminds you at a different point in your career, oh, wow, this is really important. I probably didn't even realize how important something like this was early on.
Oh, absolutely.
And obviously, being organized is going to be a huge part of your success as a head coach. But it's also going to be about the players. As you said, like the player-led teams and recruiting is going to be a big thing. Talk about kind of like how you, as a recruiter and now as leading a program, how do you weigh the intangibles when you're out looking for those talented players that you need to compete on Saturdays?
Yeah. I think the most important thing is first, there's a 3-step criteria to me to recruiting a kid into a program. Is he a good person? Is he a good student? And is he a good football player? And it's in that order. I firmly believe if we have good people and good students in our program, we're going to be really successful. The student part is going to be obviously a little contingent upon where you are and the levels of what is defined as what is a good student. The other part, obviously, from the football standpoint, is going to be dictated in a lot of ways by the level. If you're playing in the SEC, you're recruiting an SEC caliber kid. If you're, a non-scholarship program, it's probably a different kid athletically. And so, but the person part should never change. The person part should be the most important. And the reason why I believe that is you have good people in your program, like good-natured people. You're going to take care of so many cultural issues before they even begin. You're not going to recruit your own problems, basically. And I know there's a big coaching cliche, like you recruit your problems. That gets said a lot. But I believe that, having great people are going to take care of a lot of things. Obviously being where I am now and where I was at Columbia and some other stops along the way, the academic requirements have been pretty rigorous. And so making sure that it's a great student, because to me, and this may sound a little selfish as a coach, but every rep I put into someone walks out the door with them if they leave. If someone fails out, someone quits football, every rep that we've invested as a program goes with that person and could have gone to someone else. And so to me, if you're recruiting a great person and you're recruiting a great student, you're going to have a greater chance on holding on to that person and that investment coming to fruition, because that's what this is. We're investing in people. And so to me, you start with those two things first, and then it's the player. And then I talked about this a lot in the whole recruiting process of taking this job at Carnegie Mellon is really, when it gets down to it, there's two jobs to me that matter as a head coach. It's relationships and it's alignment. So to me, developing relationships with people, with players, with fellow coaches, with people on campus, relationships matter, because when there's a relationship, there's a personal investment on both sides of that relationship. And then alignment just kind of speaks for itself, making sure everyone's rowing in the right direction. Everyone's going in the right direction. Everyone has the same goals. Everyone has the same mindset. And so to me, like, that was something I really tried to hammer home. And right now I'm in the thickest and the biggest part of that in my career here at Carnegie Mellon is developing relationships and making sure we're all aligned and going in the right direction. Because right now is the most critical time. These first, month or two, I'm setting first impressions with people, with players, with people on campus, and I'm developing relationships with those people. And if someone on campus that's important, whether they're in admission or financial aid or alumni development, and they don't hear from me for the first month I'm on the job, they're probably thinking our relationship doesn't matter as much. And so I want to make sure that I'm being as open in developing those relationships so that the alignment part takes care of itself. Because when everyone has those, now we're all aligned, we're all going in the same direction, we all have those same goals, and we're able to work together to get there. So to me, recruiting, you're looking at those personality traits to make sure that they're a great person and they're a great fit for, whatever program you're a part of. And then that kind of flows into developing the relationships, bringing them on campus and getting them aligned with the goals of the program.
I'm so glad that you use the word alignment, because I think especially today, I didn't really think about this until I left my coaching career and started speaking and writing and having to actually think about how do you create a winning culture? How do you get buy-in from everybody? And I think a lot of times, especially in our society, we talk about vision, we talk about culture, we talk about goals. And I kind of have this altered view where I don't really think those really mean anything, right? Going back to what we talked about a minute ago, you standing in front of the room and saying, guys, we need to have a road mentality means nothing to 20-year-old players. You have to explain how it all connects. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you talk about this. And this is the exact word that I use, is like, vision doesn't mean anything. You need alignment. So if we say that we're going to be the best, the hardest working team in our conference, well, you can't just put that on the wall and then say, guys, do we not talk about this every day? Well, yeah, we do talk about this every day, coach, but you get here at 9:30 and you leave at 4 because, you want to take your kids to soccer practice. There's nothing wrong with taking your kids to soccer practice, but like, you can't talk about it and not be about it. And I think like that is the part that I see when organizations or leaders miss. It's not that they have a bad plan or a bad vision. It's that everything is not connected. The vision dictates what the path is going to be. And you need to ensure that the structure is in place to go on that path. So I'm really glad you said that. And obviously that'll be a big part of kind of starting off on the right foot there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit on something there that I think is really, maybe this is coach specific, but people look at this as a career, and it is. But really, it's a lifestyle. Being a coach is more of a lifestyle choice and how you want to dictate your life than it is like a coaching career. And so to me, like, the 9:30 to 4:30 is like the great example. And we have to balance those things. I hate seeing burnout. We have a lot of burnout in this profession, and really good coaches are getting out because they're burnt out. And so, there has to be a good balance in that, but like, there is a lifestyle part of it that it's like, I don't want to say it consumes you, but it's like how you live, eat, and breathe, and I think about football probably more than I should. But it is kind of what, it is what motivates me, and what gets me up in the morning. And, on that run in the morning, I'm thinking about things, and, I'm in the middle of the day eating lunch, I'm thinking about things, and, but it excites me. And that to me is important, because vision, like you said, vision's just vision. It's something you can say, you can make it up whatever you want to be, but it doesn't matter if you're not getting there the right way. And to me, that's the key. That's the key to alignment. We're all getting there the right way together. It may not be the right way, but if we're all doing it together, we're going to get where we need to be because we're all on the same page.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that you can't show up at 9:30 and leave at 4, right? Like
Yep.
it's the quality of the work.
Exactly.
However, I will add, I don't know if I've ever seen a quality leader or a peak performer show up at 9:30 to start their day. That's just me. You might have different experiences. But you are 100% right. It's more about how you do things. And I think that, such an important lesson in a team environment or just in like managing your own life and just understanding like, what is it going to take for me to achieve this goal or achieve this vision? It's not something you can put it on the wall, but it's almost like, it's almost detrimental to put it on the wall because it gives people a way to like point at it and say, well, we are the hardest working team in the nation. Like, no, you need to be about it. You need to have that lifestyle, as you just said. And like talk about just kind of the culture you're trying to build, because I think that's a great segue into just kind of talking about you're coming in and let's just, for the audience's perspective, Carnegie Mellon is a good football program. You are not, typically when you become a first-time head coach, you are not going into a good situation. Like there's a reason why you as a young coach are getting this opportunity. And it's usually because there's a ton of things wrong with it. You have a very different first-time head coach opportunity. This is a good football program that was in the playoffs last year. So just talk about that a little bit and kind of coming into a situation where a great foundation has already been built.
Yeah. So 100%, most first-time head coaches, you're getting promoted from within, or you're taking over a rebuild. Super unique scenario here, which is awesome. And I talked to the players about this in our first team meeting. The foundation is there and it's a solid foundation, but what we have to understand is that the foundation, it is what it is, but we can't look back on it and be nostalgic. If we sit there and we're nostalgic about what was, it's going to become our enemy. And we're always going to looking back at what was and not forward with what we can be. And so, when I talk about like kind of the philosophy of the program and where we're moving, I'm BYB, which is bring your best every day, become your best every day, be your best in the end. And I told the players first meeting, I'm not going to sit there and say, we have to do X, Y, Z to win this game. We need to do this to win a championship. To me, the results, they're going to come. And I know this becomes very Saban-like and this becomes very cliche of, process, but it is true. Yet again, my job is to make sure that we have the best football program we can. But how we define our football program at Carnegie Mellon isn't just about wins and losses. It's about developing young men in all facets of their life that when they graduate from this place, they're going to go change the world in a really impactful way. And so to me, the foundation is there. It's a winning culture. It's a winning foundation, which excites me. But it's not going to stay that way if we don't bring it every day, if we don't keep evolving, if we don't keep getting better, because the nature of anything that's competitive, whether it's sports or business or anything in between, is that things are constantly changing and evolving and people are always moving forward. And so, my big philosophy is that every day we have to bring our best, and I want football practice, that 2 hours and 15 minutes. I want that to be the best part of everyone's day. It sure as hell is the best part of my day. If I wanted to sit in a cubicle and behind a computer all day long, I would have done something different. But I wanted to be a coach for a reason. I wanted to be out on the field. I wanted to be working with guys. And so to me, it's the same. I flip it to the kids. I want the kids to come to practice and be like, this is the best 2 hours of my day. This is where I don't have to worry about labs. I don't have to worry about school. I don't have to worry about my social life. I can just focus on having fun at football practice. And if I have a culture that is what it is, the results are all going to take care of itself, because if the culture is built that this is the best 2 hours of their day, they're going to bring their best every day because they're going to enjoy that. And that's going to help them become their best. And, we'll become our best by obviously reevaluating things constantly, looking at new ways to get better, setting goals and standards for ourselves. Coaches, our job is to provide structure to help guys meet those goals and standards. And then we have to hold accountability to ourselves, to the players, and vice versa, so that eventually they be their best. But the cool thing is you never really fully be your best. I mean, you're always in that pursuit. And that's the great thing about it, is the philosophy never has to end. It always can keep pushing forward. And to me, that's where we have the opportunity with some of the brightest young men in the country to push things forward. That, I mean, I'm talking to a kid yesterday, and I won't say his name, but he's an astrophysics major. And I'm like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do with that degree? Talk to me. And he was like, I want to go into lunar mining. I want to, and I'm like, that's unbelievable. Like at 20, I don't think I was saying that. But you're looking at people that their mentality is just so different on what they want to do and how they want to impact the world. And so that is where I get excited, because it's like, man, if I can help them push forward and get better every day and learn how to get better and learn how to evaluate themselves and learn how to be critical in a positive way about themselves and just keep pushing forward, they're going to become their best in the end. And it's going to be awesome. And they're going to go really have a huge impact on this world. And that in turn is going to make our program better. It's going to make alumni that are successful want to come back and support the program. And it's just going to keep kind of circling and working together constantly. And so that's where being at a place like this, especially as a first-time head coach, is unbelievably exciting, because so many of the foundational things are already there that you don't have to worry about. You can just kind of keep building upon them.
Yeah. Exciting and humbling.
Oh yeah.
As head coaches, we're just trying to figure out, what is this folder going to be called in my inbox, or how am I going to deal with this 20 extra minutes of practice I get on Tuesday? Your players, meanwhile, are trying to figure out how to mine precious metals on the moon. So a little humbling in that aspect.
Definitely.
This is so cool, because for me, the teams that I've been on, and I know you talked about everything being team centric, I saw the same. And another aspect that I saw in the successful teams, and what I didn't see on the teams that weren't successful or didn't reach their potential, was a disregard for what's happening in the present moment. And I like to call this like the process driven approach, not results oriented. So the teams that sit there at the beginning of the year and say, hey, we're going to win a championship, think about holding up that national title. Okay, that sounds great. And that might get me going for this like afternoon practice in the middle of two-a-days. But like, that doesn't actually mean anything. And I think it actually detracts from the goals, from like what you should actually be focusing on to reach your highest level, to reach peak performance, because then it becomes this process of almost like appeasing yourself by this thought of winning the national championship. And what we see with the peak performers and the best teams, and you invoked Nick Saban into this conversation, and obviously he's kind of, him and Bill Belichick are the poster leaders for this. But you know, it is this unrelenting focus on doing your job today. And like, it's very in line with your philosophy. It's doing our best today, and we'll worry about tomorrow. And I remember I was interviewing somebody that was on Belichick's staff, and we were talking about an experience we were having on our current team, focusing on the end of season titles and potential. And he kind of described, he was like, everything in New England was all about playing Tennessee week 1 of the preseason. And like, once we played that game, then we moved on to week 2 of the preseason. Like, they don't get ahead of themselves. Everything is on that focus in the present moment. And I love kind of how you describe it, your BYB process. So really great that those kids get to experience that, and a great way to continue to build on what's already there.
Exactly. And that's the exciting part. You know, it's not broken by any means. There's a great foundation here. It's going to be that great balance of, we cannot become nostalgic. We cannot become looking back and, you know, be like, oh, well, what was or what could be, because the second we rest on laurels from our past, just like looking too far forward, we're looking too far back, and everything's always changing. And so it's definitely a part of it that we have to have we have to have respect for it. We have to respect for the culture that has been there before, the foundation that's been built before. And like, I'll say it out loud, like, I'm following up on a legend. He was the head coach there for 36 years. And before that, he was an assistant there. And before that, Coach Lackner played there. So Coach Lackner was there for over 4 decades as a coach and had a great amount of success. And I was able to talk with him after I took the job. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for what he was able to do at the level he was able to do it, for the longevity he was able to do it. We can respect that, and we have to respect that. We should respect that. But we also need to understand that everything is changing every day all around us. Our opponents, our atmosphere, the world, everything is. And so if we're looking back or too far forward, we're not in that present moment. And we're not taking advantage of the opportunity that we have to get better.
Yeah. And I think this process-driven approach also ties back into recruiting. And, we talked about alignment before. And if you want a program that is really built on being our best every single day, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what our best is like, that's what we're striving for. I think a lot of this goes back to finding a growth mindset in the players that you're looking for. You're looking for those players that want to be about that work, that want to kind of strive to be their best every day. Talk about how you're going to find that in the players, or how you found it in the past at the previous schools you've been in.
Yeah. In recruiting, you always have your questions. The questions that you ask the prospect themselves, and then the questions that you ask the people that are close around the prospect to get to know them. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I want kids that are coachable. I want kids that like to be coached, that love to be coached, because my job is to coach them. I want people that want to work hard, because if you're going to bring it every day and try to get better every day, you need to be able to work hard. I want people that are very driven to be their best, almost on a selfish level. Like, I kind of want guys that want it all. I want them to be those guys that, they love school, they love football, they love the idea of developing their career, they love the idea of being a leader, all those things. That's where it's been really cool to be at Columbia and now at Carnegie Mellon, where you're with these super highly motivated young men that they really don't want to give up on anything. Like, they don't want to shortchange a thing. And so those are some of the things, but you always have your questions that you're kind of using. You're always, plugging away at the high school coach or people that may be close to that prospect to make sure that they're that right fit. And there are some very, very simple questions. I mean, I think every recruiter is always going to ask, do they love the weight room? Do they love, practice? Are they super injury prone, even though they're not true injuries? You know what I mean? Like, are they always just kind of, oh, this hurts, that hurts, that means that they probably just want to, play just the game. So I think there's always all those little things that you're looking for. And then I think it is a fit. You got to find the fit. And I don't think prospects really know their fit in an institution until they see it themselves. And that's the thing. There are plenty of great football players out there. There are plenty of great students out there. Are they the right fit academically and athletically for our campus and for our place? And honestly, what may have been at Columbia doesn't necessarily fit Carnegie Mellon, and vice versa. It's a very specific thing to that person, because you want to bring someone into your campus, into your culture, that's going to love it and is going to be personally invested in it and want to be there and want to be a part of it, because then they're going to maximize their experience. And so to me, that's a part of it too, is like, that's the ending part of the recruiting process, is getting them there and making sure it's a great fit. I'm a huge fan of talking to the current players about a prospect. Hey, what did you think? Is he a good fit? Is he not a good fit? Why? Because at the end of the day too, that's going to be their teammate. That's going to be their best friend. That's going to be someone that they're going to go to battle with. And if we don't value the opinions of the current players and the culture that they've helped build, then we have a bigger issue, because now we're bringing people in that don't mix, and it's on us as coaches. So I think that's a part of it as well. And that's, yet again, why I'm super, super lucky. When I go through these meetings, with the players right now at Carnegie Mellon, first question I ask them is, what have you enjoyed about your experience here? And almost every single guy has said at this point, the team, the camaraderie, the culture of how we treat freshmen when they come in, like, it's been so consistent, which is awesome to hear, because it tells me that again, the foundation's strong. And now as we bring new people in, let's make sure that we lean on those guys to say, hey, are these the right fit? These are the next guys. Are they going to fit into this culture well?
Yeah. And I've always felt too that when I started my coaching career in the early 2000s, it was felt that the academic standards at certain institutions were a hindrance to them
Mm-hmm.
performing at a high level. And I remember I was listening to, I believe it was David Shaw, it might have been one of his assistant coaches, talking about Stanford and talking about how they flipped it to be a huge positive for them, because instead of recruiting 1,000 different Pac-12 quality players each year,
Mm-hmm.
they started by looking for the high quality academic students. And then in addition to that, then after they figured out who the top students were, then they determined if they were Pac-12 quality. And obviously Stanford's success speaks for itself. So I've always been a huge proponent. We've seen this at Northwestern and Rice
Mm-hmm.
and Vanderbilt, all in recent years in Division I, kind of having their best seasons of all time. And I think a lot of that is those coaches leading into exactly what you just spoke about. And just to wrap it up, I know that in the coaching profession, you're known as a quarterback guru, and probably a huge reason why you're now the head coach at Carnegie Mellon. But just kind of talk about, from a quarterback recruiting perspective, what type of intangibles are you looking for out of your quarterbacks, and maybe ultimately your starting quarterback?
Yeah, I think it's something that you hit on earlier. It's growth potential, but growth potential isn't just athletic ability; it's leadership ability. It's their ability to connect with the community on campus, and be a positive part about that community. I said this all the time at Columbia. I said it on other podcasts. I've said it to people. I can find plenty of great quarterbacks that can do it, that can make all the throws. I can find guys that probably academically can get it done. But to me, it's that it factor. It's that personality factor. My biggest accomplishment and the thing I'm most proud of leading Columbia is I truly believe that room from top to bottom is better than it was when I came in. That's not putting down Coach Santos, who was there before me. He is a fantastic coach. He's the head coach now at New Hampshire. He has done a phenomenal job. But one of the things that I wanted to really do when I was there was make sure that every guy I was involved with the recruiting process, that we were bringing in the best guy we could that fit Columbia football and the goals that we had. Our goals were to flip a program from a doormat to a potential champion every year. And I wanted kids that had that chip on the shoulder, that wanted to build it the right way, that wanted to put the work in. Because I knew that room, if that room could be the driving force of all of it, the rest would fall in line. And I'm super proud of that room. That room has got 6 leaders in it. It's got 6 dudes that could become president, could become CEOs. I mean, they are phenomenal. And I'm really proud of that, because they all could do it football wise and they all could do it academically. But I really felt like the personalities that were in that room recruiting were the guys that were going to use their experience at Columbia to change something. And that's exactly what they'll do in the world. And it's so cool. Like that room, just looking back on it a little nostalgically as I move on, that I really do feel like from top to bottom, that room, I mean, there are guys in that room that could play anywhere in the Ivy League, that they could be on any other roster. And I don't know if that was always the case at Columbia, 10 years ago, where it might have been a different deal where they were much lower, in the pecking order of the Ivy. And so I think it's the same thing I look at as I push forward to Carnegie Mellon and recruiting is, whether we like it or not, and I know I'm biased, I'm a quarterback guy, but your quarterback is going to take you places, whether you like it or not. And if you have good to great quarterback play, you got a chance to win a championship every year. If you have sub-average quarterback play, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to win at a super high level. And so to me, if we can hit it there, with a great guy academically, a great guy athletically, a guy that obviously from a personality standpoint fits the university and what we're trying to do, the sky's the limit. And that's where I've been super fortunate, whether it's been at Rhodes, even back to Wabash, but even Indiana, like Ben Chappell at Indiana was one of those dudes. Like he just was different. Like he took command, but you just look at it all the way through, you get those type of guys in that room. It makes up for so many other deficiencies you may have in the organization, because that guy is able to push things forward from a leadership standpoint.
Amen. It all starts and ends with the quarterback. So
Yep.
from the quarterback guru himself.
No, not a guru. Not a guru.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining me here today. First of all, congratulations
Thank you.
on the first head coaching gig, and really excited for you and your family and this next chapter at Carnegie Mellon. And thank you so much for joining me today.
No, awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Evan. I appreciate it. It was great talking and bringing up some old memories.
Amen. And we'll do it again on the organizational podcast that we'll start here.
Let's do it.
All right. Take care, man.
All right. Thanks. Take care.